Want to tell a player something that you don't want the other players to know while the session is going on? Want to recreate the iconic moment when Matthew Mercer stands up in Critical Role and begins to whisper in someone's ear? Well, stick to the end. I'll show you the 4 tips that I have in order to effectively do a whisper so it has some grounds inside of your game. Let's get into it. Alright, so tip number 1 is you should only use whispers in order to give a dramatic effect. Now, what do I mean by this? So, for instance, let's say your party wants, or someone in your group wants to make a perception check, right? In order to see if there's someone trailing them, or if they can find out if there's someone watching them. They roll a perception check, they succeed by your standards. Get up and whisper to them, in which, by you doing that, the rest of the party members are like, oh my god, something's gonna happen, what's happening, why are they getting a whisper? And it creates just extra drama, and you should use it to do that. So, when you whisper to them, you can say, oh yeah, there's scouts watching you, and this is actually a really cool moment in which you can tell your player information, and if you ever play the game Telephone, you already know that they'll most likely say the wrong information, or they'll give out not accurate information, in which you just leave it at that. That way the party can choose how to deal with it, and it just helps create an extra bit of drama inside of your games. Alright, let's move on to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is, if you're playing in a game that's IRL, just simply take your player out of the room. Because what will happen sometimes is, if you try to whisper in their ear, you either are, like me, terrible at whispering, or your other players will try to listen in and try to figure out what you're trying to say. So if you just take them out of the room, it enables you to have those epic moments with that character alone. That way when they come back in the room, your players inside the room will already be like, oh my god, what are they doing out there? What are they talking about? And as your player comes in the room, they all look like, what'd you learn? What is this? What's happening? Why did he whisper to you? And they all start attacking, and then it gives your player that you took out of the room, that comes back into the room, a chance to have their own spotlight and a chance to have their own little cool moment where they can say, oh yeah, I know this, and it just adds a little nice touch. Alright, now let's move on to tip number 3. Tip number 3 is simply do not make your whispers too long. Now, here's the reasoning. Yes, you're doing the whisper in order to make this epic and kind of memorable moment for your one character, or your one player I should say, and have them have a chance to be in the spotlight. But if you do it for too long, the other players inside the room will wind up getting bored and disinterested, and when they come back, they just kind of won't care anymore, and they'll just be like, yo, let's just move on with the session, you took forever with that whisper. So make sure you keep it nice and short and sweet, but just don't cut out any of the meat and potatoes. Alright, let's move on to tip number 4. Only use whispers when you're doing really hard RP stuff, and when you're only doing stuff that's special to that particular character and their backstory. Now, what do I mean by this? So for instance, this past Sunday, I had my session met, and we did a torture scene in which I took one of the players out, and I did a whisper. I took him out of the room, and I role-played out this torture session, which I would categorize as like a hard RP. And basically, it was pretty cool. They were really traumatized, and they're like, and basically, when they came back, the effect of her coming back, and they'll be like, oh, what happened? And she was like, no, I don't want to talk about it. That was beautiful, and that was just gold. So use whispers in order to do hard RP or special backstory stuff, just like Matthew Mercer does with or did with Ford, and how he was having that dream where he was choking on seawater and he just woke up and spit out water. So that's the only time you should really be using whispers, or those are really good times to be using whispers. Alright, Storyteller, I'm really glad you made it to the end of the video. I hope you really liked it. If you did, please just give it a thumbs up. It only requires a little bit of finger strength and a little bit of time. Just a little bit, like 1 or 2 seconds. Probably 1. Anyways, if you really liked it, please feel free to subscribe to my channel, as I post new videos every Saturday at 2:30 and 4:30 Eastern Standard Time, and every Tuesday I will post a table talk in which I'll share stories from my own table and just have a talk, and you can either have a laugh with me, or you can look at me and critique me and saying, yeah, clearly you shouldn't have done that. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed the content today, and I'll continue to be posting so much new ones. The current Storyteller of the week is Tom. We're just gonna call him Tom because that's part of his Discord name. Anyways, he started this whole new thing called the PPW, in which I didn't even ask him to do this. He just kind of did it of his own accord. And I just want to give a huge shout out to Tom for doing this. And, you know, it's really cool. I'm not an artist at all. I can't draw to save my life. But, you know, if he wants to go out and do that, I really love that, and I really appreciate that. So, if you want to do the PPW or the QOTDs, please hop over to the Discord, which I'll link in the description below, and just engage with all the storytellers there. Now, I just want to make something clear. You do not have to be a DM in order to be a storyteller. Players are also a part of the storytelling process, because without you, us DMs would have no story to tell. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed, have a fantastic day, and in a world without fantasy, sometimes we need a little Dungeons and Dragons.